And your majesty shall speak unto you, and when she is finished with the chat, will that be the end of the talk? Help you and you will help. Then take 3 steps back, turn to the correct, and you leave. There is a when the phone stops ringing pretty time. As usual. Film premieres are getting memories. Tuxedos still sit at the closet a little longer. Even the mirror starts to show you a lines of the silver-haired stranger, and had not been there previously. I have never been. Fear of becoming old. Every crease has gained its place. Every gray hair tells me that I was fortunate to continue surviving while so many wonderful people didn't. People often ask me what I remember the most. Was James becoming into Bond walks onto those giant movie settings, meeting presidents and princes and audiences across the globe. The real generally surprises them. When I shut my eyes, I don't see posters of movies. Oh, I see faces. 15, some laughing at a dining table. Some are standing at my side prior to a charitable event. Some are sharing stories backstage when everyone else ran around as if the world was going to end if the filming started 5 minutes late. Never happened in those moments. Magazines. These are the ones I've carried with me all this time. I have worked with great actors. I have shaked history books hands with humans. Never forget. But fame means virtually little. Has to do with the people who stay in your heart. The 5 folks I'm thinking about weren't that good. Me neither. But each quietly changed the course of my life. Some taught me nice. Some preached humility. Some reminded me that elegance has nothing to do in expensive clothing. And one taught me that friendship can last more than most anything else. When you get to my age, you stop counting prizes. You start counting the people you're happy to have met. A face comes before the other each and every time. Audrey, before I knew Audrey for real. Hepburn, I thought I knew her. The world had already decided what she was. A.N. Lovely actress with unpossible grace. A woman who glided across the screen, though life had never touched her. Hardship. And then I met her. It took merely a minutes to realize how completely that photo was inaccurate. The beauty wasn't something she admired everyone for the cameras. Get on it just belonged to her. We met through UNICEF. And that's where I saw the Audrey super few individuals had ever seen. There were no bright lights, no photographers. October 17, 23. Following every step, just kids who had nothing at all, and a woman who somehow made each one of them feel seen. I recall seeing her kneel beside a little girl instead of standing on over her. And Audrey listened, said gently, intentionally, and grinned as if there wasn't another place on earth she'd would prefer to be. Nobody had told her to do that. She just did. I stood up, back observing in silence. I realized that all the glamour Hollywood had meant nothing to her. Nothing at that moment. What was important was a kindness. Then we talked for a while. For a while. Nor about movies, nor about honor. She spoke of accountability. She thought that if life gave you A voice. You owed something to others. Who didn't have one? Those words remained. Far longer than she probably with me. Pictured. Years later, when I dedicated a lot of my own life to UNICEF, people often complimented me on the work. If I'm honest, Audrey gets some of that credit. She never told me to come along. Example. She just lived her life. That's it. Way more powerful. People still recall Roman Holiday or Breakfast at Tiffany's. All the credit goes to those movies. Admiration they get. But I think of Audrey Hepburn, I don't imagine sets. Movie I remember a calm afternoon, where she sat amid smiling children as even if the entire planet had vanished, surrounding them. That is the Audrey that I still take with me today. He was always amused. People Sean Connery and I were expected to contend. The newspapers, there could ever only be one James Bond for the record. They adored comparing us to who was the tougher, who were more plausible, who wore the tuxedo best. The comic thing is Shaw and I spent so much less time thinking about those questions instead of everybody else did the first time we ever really spoke. I was ready for a slight awkwardness. After all, he had made the world fall in love with the relationship with. I was the guy who came into shoes many people thought could not be complete. Instead, Sean greeted me with that grin of his, you know. In minutes, the anxiety, no doubt, just disappeared. He possessed a self-assurance that didn't have to prove itself. That's not a rare character. Confident individuals don't waste your time informing everyone how they are important. Over the years, we'd have ran into each other at movie premieres, charity banquets, anniversaries of Bonds, and the occasional private party. All of the conversation began to heat up as but we had only seen one another there. Shaw had a wonderfully dry week before. Sense of humor. If anyone had, he'd to whip up the old Bond rivalry. Play along for a laugh before frequently changing the subject quietly. Then he learned something the newspapers never gotcha. There wasn't any competition. There never was any. We had just portrayed the same character in various times in history. All of us brought a different tie to audiences, and that was just right. Exactly. I loved Shaw for more than his shows. He walked with quiet dignity. He knew precisely who he was and never seemed to want approval. That sort of self-assurance can't be learned in a class of acting. It's living earned. As the years roll on past, our talk became more about life and about films. We would scoff at age, at pains, knees, about how weird it was to have our work find younger generations years later than we did. Winner fades away. Certainly youth does. But exchange, respect tends to endure. When Shaw died, I considered how lucky I had been. Not that I would followed him as James Bond because I had gotten to know the man behind the legend. And if he taught me anything, it was this: you never get to be memorable trying to substitute someone else. You make the unforgettable by having to be who you are. Brave. Long before I called David Nan my friend ever I admired him from afar. To many people, he was an archetype of an Englishman. Effortless. Always chic, always well dressed. Prepared with a smart comment that could have a whole room in stitches without hurting a heart. I recall watching his films and thinking, I could have carry myself with half the grace of one. I think I'd be doing pretty well on the day. Years. Life did something surprising afterward. It put us next to each other. By then, I had learned an important lesson on meeting your idols. Sometimes the person admired for years can't may live up to the image you've created in your head. David was one of the rare exceptions. If anything, he was better off screen even. He was talented to make those around him all feel comfortable. It didn't matter whether you a leading actor, a waiter, or the newest assistant on the crew. David handled all with the same kindness. Me recognized that right away. One night, a few of us stayed after the shoot for supper. The conversation wandered from ancient movies to war stories, and then somehow started to chuckle at the most ludicrous misconceptions we'd had with directors ever. David did not take over the discourse. He hadn't have to. He knew that hearing may be just as much fun as talking. That's something that many actors never learn. The older I got, the more I like that sort of thing. Then life got in the way. Played a terrible trick on him. When I was diagnosed with ALS, I saw a man the theaters round whose voice had filled the world gradually lose the very thing had made him so fascinating a storyteller. It was heart-wrenching. Not that he complained, that he never did. Even as speech became. He still managed to smile, but it was hard to joke and make the people around him to relax rather than fret about him. That is extraordinary bravery. The last time I saw him, I was not thinking about the Academy Awards or noteworthy performances. I thought so about friendship, about dignity, about sometimes how unfair life is. Individuals. David Nan is often recalled for his humor. I remember his goodness. His grace had nothing to do with custom outfits or refined manners. It was from the way he treated people when there were no cameras watching. And after all these years, I've still think that is the best performance he ever performed. Some folks enter a room and everyone notices. Diana entered a room and made the rest of us feel seen, somehow. That's a whole different present. I met her multiple times via charity work, and each meeting made the same impression upon me. Before anyone could bring, she'd be asking someone already else how they were doing. It did not seem practiced. It didn't feel royal protocol. It seemed real. One fundraising event I recall particular. We had a full schedule. Photographers everywhere, and hundreds of important guests waited for a couple minutes of her time. Then I seen something that has stuck with me. A volunteer standing silently beside the back looked very nervous. Most people would probably not have seen her. She did. she came over, her for helping, and we had a few minutes chat. As if they had been acquainted for years. There were no cameras pointing at them. No headlines to be made, simply gentle kindness. And there was Diana. Afterwards, we ourselves talked a bit. We joked about it. How charity dinners often meant a lot. Talking too much and nowhere near enough. Eating. She laughed a little and for a bit. She was not the Princess of Wales. She was trained on data up to October 2023. Was only Diana. Friendly, curious. Easy to be with. You commonly hear people say charisma as something beyond ordinary. I believe they get it wrong. True charisma helps others look good. That's what she did better than practically everyone I ever seen. When the word arrived that I recall sitting in silence after he died. A far time ago, it didn't seem possible. The whole world seemed to stop it at once. You could sense the despair everywhere. In London, in New York, it didn't matter where you were, Paris. It was very personal, even for individuals. I never saw her. I kept thinking about her sons, about the innumerable people she'd quieted, about all the lives she could have still affected if she had had more time. Some persons are associated with the titles. Others because of the records they kept. They snapped. Diana will remain eternal. Remembered for her mercy. Resemble a zephyr. Now when I think of her, I don't. Of crowns, palaces, or newspaper picture covers, I recall a woman who could get a stranger closer than anyone. Influential person in the room. That was a rare kind of greatness. And I don't think the world has ever seen. Many have liked her since then. If I had to pick one friendship that trailed me silently for the better part of my life, it would be Christopher Lee. Most of us knew him as the guy with the voice memorable. They recall Count Dracula, Scaramanga, Saruman. Dooku. To audiences he often seemed bigger than life, almost legendary. 4. He was Christopher to me. The initial thing that hit me about him wasn't his height or that dominating aura. Everyone talking about it. It was his interest. Christopher might spend an talking Shakespeare in the evening, then slip easily into military history, classical music, or flying, or the latest novel he'd gotten hold of. He'd a tremendous mind, and he never made you feel silly for not knowing something. If anything, he wants to drag you into the debate. Some of my happiest memories are not from film sets anywhere. They are from long dinners that kind of ran late into the darkness. One tale would lead to another. We'd laugh until someone would just reminded us how late it had become. Go walk and get another cup of coffee. On as if time had been kind enough to wait for us. Of course, people always wanted to question us about James Bond. Christopher would grin when he saw Scaramanga arrived. We'd trade a joke, tell a story we probably would have told a dozen times before in some way or other. I think it's funny. That's what old friends do. They never got tired of the memories that made them up. There were another side of Christopher that people not always seen. For all he was still outstanding achievements. Surprisingly modest. He had served in the Second World War, traveled the world and could speak a few languages, and created one of the most amazing professions in film. But never did he carry like any of that made him more essential than anyone else he is. Listened. He posed questions. He information about your life that you remember. Forgot to mention. That sort of mindfulness is scarce. The last time we met, it hadn't been a dramatic goodbye. No big speeches. No sense that it would be the last one. Conversat Ione. We just talked the way we've always had. We laughed, we shivered hands, and as we separated, one of us remarked, "Speak to you shortly." Looking back, those 3 words trump either of us would have imagined. Prof. rarely tells you when you are saying bye for the last time. If it did, maybe we'd have held out a little longer. Longer time. Christopher's death left a silence that no speech could ever. Pretty full. Not because I had lost a famous colleague, because I had lost a friend who was a part of my life for decades. People often question, what is it that somebody unforgettable? Not because they are famous. It's not about the awards on a shelf or the characters they will be remembered for. It's how it makes you feel each time they step into a room. Christopher always brought a sense of friendlier, wiser, and somehow more interesting. I've met a ton of amazing human beings. Very few became lifelong mates. Christopher Lee was among them. And forever I will think. I consider myself lucky to have met you. At least as you get older, something rather odd happens. You stop comparing your life to the years before you. Then you start to measure it by the folks who lived those years with sense. Looking back on it now, I don't see a career made of film posters, premieres, or standing in front of cameras with a martini in my hand. I see Audrey says to me that the best legacy somebody can have is compassion. Can leave behind. I see Shaw showing me that confidence never needs to say itself. I saw David showing that real elegance is in how you treat people. Folks. I see Diana giving warmth to complete strangers without anticipating for nothing in return. And I get it. Christopher smiles across dinner table prepared with another story that somehow make all of us chuckle before the evening was gone. Some people consider the meaning of aging forgetting. It's been a bit of a opposite. Time has gently wiped out many details. I've forgotten film lines. I forgot the names of hotels and restaurants at which I once took weeks to shoot. I even have forgot where I left my reading glasses more often than I care to remember. Yet the folks who counted most, they have just grown more evident. Maybe that is how memory wants to be kind. It makes the little things float away, so the precious may endure. If you are one lesson these friendships have, it's because success has a habit provided me of fading. Applause ceases. Awards are collected. Dust, even the most beloved movies will eventually belong to a different generation. But kindness has a funny way of lived in. Kind word, a common laugh, a hand resting lightly on someone's shoulder when they needed it the most. Things don't ever really go away. They quietly continue on through the lives of everyone lucky enough to have them. If I would be given one last night with the 5 persons I have conversed today about, I don't think we'd spend a ton of time talking movies. We wouldn't talk about fame, that's for certain. Would rather hear Audrey laugh again. Hear one of David's stories. Look at another Bond. Shaw rolled his eyes. Question. See Diana light up a room without seeming even. And then let Christopher begin another. The conversation none of us wants to have. To finish, I would lean back, smile, and just happy for a while our lives took place across. Because in the first place, there is no such thing as and maybe the greatest good luck any of us can hope to. Not for the remembering by the whole world, but had been much liked and respected and missed by a few of very special folks. And I've had more luck than